Someday at Christmas, men won't be boys. Play with bums like kids play with toys. One December, our hearts will see a world where men are free. Someday at Christmas, there'll be no wars. When we have learned what Christmas is for. When we have learned what life's really worth, there'll be peace on earth. Someday all our dreams will come to be. Someday in a world where men are free. Maybe not a time for you and me, but someday at Christmas time. Someday at Christmas time. Merry Christmas, everybody. Greetings and welcome to the Tiger's Den. This is the voice of Cheryl, and I am Toothless Tiger. Merry Christmas, everybody. And I'm sure you guys are out getting ready for Christmas morning. Some of you guys are celebrating Christmas tonight with your families. It is well. The show must go on. I'm going to be talking about a subject that's made its way through YouTube, and I've seen plenty of videos. And I wanted to speak about it because it speaks to what I've been speaking about for the last couple of weeks. And what I've been talking about is the federal mandate of the destruction of the Black family. Of course, you know, I use the word Asiatic, but for the purpose of all of the documents that I will be reading from, I'm going to use the terminology in which they use. You know, when I started out and I came here to help uplift fallen humanity, one of the things that I spoke of was getting back to a matriarchal system, because we are the givers of life, not because we are, rulers of anything, but we are the first of everything, and everything that comes from us learns from us. And of course, at one point in time, we went in the human realm over to the patriarchal system. If you would get in harmony with nature and study nature, you would find that everything in nature is matriarchal, even Mother Earth herself. So, with that being said, there was a doctor that I like very much, by the way, who plays on this show called Married to Medicine, and she's known as Dr. Jackie. And for some reason, I guess because now she's going to be the spokesperson for the Vice President, Kamala Harris, and now that she's going to be the spokesperson, a video came out where a couple of years ago she made a statement that I'm sure she wished she had never made. And that statement came out, and it really was a disturbing statement. Perhaps she should have chose her words wisely. But when we're having conversations and we think we're having conversations with somebody we're comfortable with, we may say some things that we wouldn't ordinarily say. Or we may say those exact same things, but maybe the meaning, it may not have the meaning that it has taken now that it's out in the public. One thing I learned about YouTube, and a lot of people say that they're high on loyalty. Not many people are loyal. And loyal to what? Because everybody wants to remind you that you're not their friend and they don't know you. So I don't know if that's true or not. It used to be a time when I had up to 100 people in the chat. Now it's me and a couple of you, and I'm glad to see you here. But I really came on here to do this for me because this is my purpose. You know, when you know what you're created for, and if you don't live in that creation, woe, it's you. I live a very happy, simple life. Very simple. Until last year when everything went crazy because of deranged people. But I realize we have those type people everywhere you go, whether you know them or not. It's not necessarily the individual as it is behavior. And when you know people and characteristics, then you kind of understand how things work. I didn't know the game of YouTube, nor do I play it. I really did come here hoping to uplift somebody, to say something that would encourage somebody. And if it did, good. If it didn't, all right. And I wanted to do that with a little humor, but I wanted to do it with the life's lessons that I've learned and the things I've learned along the way researching. So, what I do is just share what I know, and that's where I go. Now, perhaps somebody will want to look at this video at another time. I would be happy if you would do that. If you join me, please be sure and hit the like button. It really helps shows YouTube the engagement. It doesn't matter if it's one person or if it's two. If you hit the like button, it does show that we have engagement, and that's what means everything to me. I'm going to be talking about pretty much from here on out about the topic that I'm talking about tonight. As you saw the title, it's a question to bear. Hey, so Alicia, it is, do black women really, are we really dramatic and crying wolf during pregnancy? Some of us would beg to differ with that statement. Uh, I'm going to play the audio of what was said at that time. Then I'm going to play the audio that sounds so disingenuous today. And so, my question to Dr. Jackie, if I could speak with her, would be, were you serious when you made the statement, or are you serious now that you're chosen to be a spokesperson? Because the two does not match. And the apology that was given, that's why you have to give an apology for yourself. Just because you give an apology doesn't mean someone is going to receive it. And so you have to be really sincere in who you are to give an apology, because you cannot. I don't know if any of you that will be looking at this in the future, I know if you've been in the chat, then you know we've been doing the 7 Hermetic principles. And one of the principles is cause and effect. And in cause and effect, effect is what happens after the event take place. So, meaning I can't make you love me, listen to me, or want to, but I can do an action that can cause a reaction. But your respect of me, your love of me, your hatred of me, whatever that is, it has to come from you, the individual. It cannot be bought, and no one can make you do it. That's free will choice. And so I don't know if she's sincere in what she's saying with the vice president, or even if she's sincere in her apology. I really wish it would have been more personable, but you know, you can't make all the people happy. So it doesn't matter how she does it, will it suffice? As long as she's doing it for herself, I say yes. But if she's doing it for anyone else, then I would say that her apology was totally in vain. So I want to play first what she said. Give me a moment. Gotta do my little housekeeping first. Anyone that's new that's listening in the bushes, I hope you enjoy yourself and please just hit the like button. I'd greatly appreciate it. And having said that, I'm going to play the audio. And because it's a little low, I'm going to cut the music down just a little bit more, even though I have it down pretty low. So let me play what was said, and I hope you guys can hear it. Okay, here it is here. As African American women, we're a bit more dramatic. I'm trying to go back to the beginning. I can't get it to go all the way back. It's right there in that corner. I don't know if y'all know what that feels like, but you be trying to get it to go back and it just won't move for you. Let me see if I can get it to move. As African American women, we're a bit more dramatic. And that you go to the doctor and you complain and you complain. Okay, I know how I can get it. There you go. As African American women, we're a bit more dramatic. And that you go to the doctor and you complain and you complain and you complain, and you're not taken serious because you cried wolf the entire pregnancy. Mm. Hold on here. I hit the wrong thing. Talking about. And that you go to the doctor and you complain and you complain and you complain, and you're not taken serious because you cried wolf the entire pregnancy. That ain't me, boo. I don't know what you're talking about. Go ahead. I didn't say you. I just said as African American women, we want to also make sure you're being serious with your doctor and not playing the game so I can take you off work. Because then we see you 25 times in the pregnancy. It's hard to believe that there's a true problem when there's a true problem. Okay, now that's what she said. And what I got out of that, mainly she was saying that at, as African American women, that we make up excuse after excuse to keep from going to work. And so the doctor can't really take us serious because it's like we just don't want to work. Unfortunately, company policy makes it that you just can't be off of work for more than 3 days at a time and without having a doctor's note. And if you're a woman that's pregnant for the first time, and for me, the only time, then you have things going on with your body that is not normal to you. It may be normal for pregnancy, but since you've never experienced that, then you wouldn't know that. And for a doctor to say that you're just complaining for me to take you off work when you're the only one with the authority to take me off work and I'm having to pay to come see you, that's insulting to say the least. Considering that I know with my company that I was working with when I got pregnant with my son, and their company policy was that you could start maternity leave at the moment you found out you were pregnant. But if you did not have any serious issues at birth, you had a 6 week period. And after that 6 week period, they were expecting you to return to work. So for her to make that statement, I thought that was really a bit harsh and didn't make much sense. But that's what she said when she made the statement that's in an uproar over the internet at this time. And then what made this come back out to the public was the fact that she made this appearance on this past Sunday show, and everyone is, up in arms about this because now she's been chosen by the vice president to represent uh, women of color, as they like to call us, Black women, and the mortality rate that we're dying at in childbirth. And so this is what she said on this time, and I'm using these under fair use, and I have the music playing, but it's kind of low because I want you guys to hear it. But I did alter it by playing the music. So here we go, fair use. I just looked on this. Okay. Get that out also. It's one. Let's go. Highest rates of maternal mortality that Black women in our country in this era are 3 times more likely to die in connection with childbirth. I think it's inexcusable. It certainly shouldn't be that way. And what I really want us to do is just make sure we are talking about it. We have been fighting for states to expand Medicaid coverage. We need all the states to sign on, and we need to let moms know that they're actually entitled to Medicaid coverage for up to 12 months of postpartum care. And that's one of the things that we need to get the word out. We also set up a hotline for mothers to have support in terms of emotional and mental health. So I'll give you that number, and let's make sure we get that out also. It's 1-833-TLC-MOM. And I'm posting it and shouting it to the hills. Yeah. So that moms know that we support them, that we want to make this better. Let us all work together, and I know we will make a difference. So then again, the question becomes, are you serious when you're talking to the vice president? Hey, Kelly G, or are you serious when you say that we just make excuses to be off the work? I don't think that, as much as I love Dr. Jackie, she's a great candidate for that endeavor. Now, some people love to say it's because she does not have children, and I don't think that you have to give birth to be a mother, because you are born a woman, and that's what we have, whether our organs work or not, whether we can produce or not. We have every instinctual thing in us to nurture and be mothers. We know that's true by the history that I'm going to share, how we were used throughout the time of colonization to take care of other people's children, mainly the masses, and then some of the other women that had to work. So it's quite possible. Dr. Jackie is a no nonsense type doctor. And what I've experienced with some doctors, they have what we call the God complex. And it's like they're so great, you can't really conversate with them, or you feel uncomfortable asking them a question. Some of them, if you ask them a question, they'll put you out of their office and refuse to see you. And some doctors, and I've been really blessed to have some of the world's greatest doctors that really cared about me as a human being, knew me by my name, and treated me as if I was their mother. That's the tender love and care that I felt from the doctors that I have and have had, because I had one to pass away and a couple of others retired. But the doctors that I've had have been very attentive to my issues and my needs. But with Dr. Jackie saying those things that she said, and she was so uh, casual and cavalier when she was speaking to Dr. Heavenly about women complaining and just wanting to be off of work and they really can't take us serious. And she speaking, I guess, as black woman because she's a black woman. I don't know what it is, but I think that's universal. But you really don't have to make up a reason when you're pregnant for the first, second, third, fourth, fifth time. I've only been pregnant once, but I know each child is different. Therefore, each pregnancy has to be different. And I'm looking at Kelly saying, I'm wondering if she has many Caucasian women visit her to even be able to make that comment so boldly. Yeah, it makes you wonder. One things that is said, and a lot of people are saying it, is a lot of, I know her black customers are affluent, and because Atlanta have a lot of stores and stuff like that, so they're the higher echelon, and they have the probably best insurance, or they make enough money where they can pay right out for their visits. And then some say that she doesn't take Medicaid, and so I don't know if that's a true statement or not. So if she doesn't take Medicaid, I don't understand why she would make that statement. But remember, a woman on Medicaid is not necessarily working. So even if she took your insurance, what she's telling you is that she's not going to take you off work. You're going to work until that baby. Some women have done that, actually, have had the baby leaving the job or on the job. So I don't understand why she have that stance, but that's her stance. So what I want to do is just go back and revisit how we, the matriarchs, the givers of life, the oldest human beings, so all life comes from us. I want to just go back and remind us, because for some reason, I believe a lot of the problems that we have today is because we don't know our history. And if you're anything like me growing up, I did not want to know the history. It was too painful to hear some of the stories that were told. But as an adult, being treated like you heard that the people before you were treated, I don't see much difference. So I got to understand why this is happening to us as a people, and why our situation is so dire, and no one seems to be concerned. I know the individual parent is concerned because I know I'm concerned for my son. And so I mapped out his life and his education to the best of my ability to give him an opportunity, hopefully, to live and to excel and to be the man that he is today. But everybody don't do that, and everybody can't do that. So it's just something I think we need to look at, and maybe if our young men and our young ladies knew what we've gone through, to give them the life that we try as parents today to give to them. There is a period of time when we have children that didn't have so much love and parentage. I think that's what a lot of problems with a lot of these people here on YouTube that have no respect for nothing and no one, not even themselves. I think that's where a lot of this conning and scamming that they like to talk about, the pedophilia and all of this good stuff, I think this is where that comes from. And pedophilia is not good, but they use it as if it's a term of endearment. They use it like it really is a badge of honor. But of course, they use it as a weapon to destroy an individual that they want to talk about. And that's unfortunate, especially with all that we've had to go through as a people, and the devastation and the abuse of our bodies that we've had to endure. So I'm just going to spend a little time. I'm going to read a couple of things, and that's why I haven't come on camera. And I'm going to read this information. And like I said, perhaps you know somebody who may be interested, share the video. But I want to make sure that I do my part and do what I'm supposed to do, and that's put the word out. As I said once before, there's a scripture where the Lord told, I believe it was Ezekiel, to go out and talk to the people. They were going to be a rebellious people. They're going to look at you crazy, but don't you stop. You go and tell them what thus said the Lord. So even though I view things totally different today, I don't deny or denounce the word of truth. I believe in the all, and the all is in me, and I am in the all. And I believe in doing what I was purposed to do. And I believe in doing it alone if I have to. Like I said, I appreciate you guys for coming in here and hitting the like button. It really means a lot. Boy, but I would do this talking to myself just like I'm making a video. And I may make more videos because it is taxing to pay for a service, and you're paying out more than you're receiving. And that's okay too. I've done that on a many of things. So doing this for you guys, it's all what it is, what it is. But let's go with the hidden voices, enslaved women in the low country and US South. And this is written by LDHI. And these are papers written by universities. And I wanted to make sure that I knew what LDHI stood for, and that is the Low Country Digital History Initiative. And it's a digital history project hosted by the Low Country Digital Library at the College of Charleston. So let me just share this, because, like I said, it's about knowing a lot of the problems that we have as people is we don't know anything, and no one can tell us anything. And that's why it's best for you to just go out and get it for yourself. But if someone has done the work for you, you see, there's a saying that says the person that can read and won't read is no better than the person who can't read and want to know how. And nowadays, we do the reading for you. Now, mine may not be as clear as some of the readers who do this for a living, but I just do the best I can with the eyes that I have, and I'm willing. And that's all I can say is I'm willing. It says the exploitation through reproductive labor. Women also face exploitation by slaveholders because of their ability to reproduce. Enslavers desired more slave laborers in a society where economic success was based on the exploitative regime. So, women endured a dual exploitation of being forced to labor for slaveholders and simultaneously increasing the supply of the enslaved population through reproduction. This is why it's so very disheartening to hear Dr. Jackie say the things that she said about Black women, and as if we're playing when we're ill going through pregnancy. This dual exploitation exposed tensions in the system of slavery itself because enslavers tried to preserve the value of their property, even when unborn, but at the same time, they desired physically to abuse women whose work did not meet expectations. Hence, enslavers found ways to whip women in ways they believed would protect valuable future offsprings. Punishers commonly tied up women and forced them to strip off their clothes before a whipping. But if these women were pregnant, then, as WPA respondents testified, women would sometimes be forced to dig a hole in the ground and lie face down in it to receive their punishment so as to protect their unborn child. Now, let's just marinate on that for a minute. And let's just think about our grandmother's grandmother. And she had to do these kind of things in order for that lineage to come up to who we are today. And we see ourselves as nothing but bitches and hoes and sluts and all of this other stuff that we call ourselves and that other people call us. And we allow them to do that. We entertain ourselves by having some of the most dishonorable professions as well as honorable. But if we went back into the honor of our ancient mothers and fathers and brought it up to our ancestors that we know of, and then our ancestors that we know, we might can start turning the minds around of some of these people, not by what we say, but why what the history says. Because if you remember, they're now coming up with this great idea that we don't want to teach critical race theory, which we've never taught critical race theory in schools. That's something that's talked about in college. And again, it is a theory. And I think it's a project, it's not a subject matter that is being taught. Let me continue. While it is impossible to quantify the number of times that white people in authority whipped their enslaved women, whether pregnant or not, the fact that physical violence appears frequently in a variety of testimonies shows that the practice was routine, even expected. Enslaved people everyday lives. However, enslavers rarely whipped a slave to death because they wanted to preserve their property. And that's what we were considered, property. And this is a photograph depicting an enslaved family picking cotton. And Pierre Havens, Savannah, Georgia, circa 1850s, courtesy of New York Historical Society. Those are us, we are they. Women's gender influenced the forms of reproductive exploitation they endured in other ways too. Sometimes slave owners forced enslaved women to breastfeed infants not their own, either those of white families or of other enslaved women. Enslavers' use of women to feed other infants was a form of oppression at the intersection of women's work labor and reproductive labor. Enslaved in Mississippi, WPA respondent Maddie Logan described her mother's role as a wet nurse. Mother nursed all Miss Jenny's children because all of her young ones and my mammies was born so close together, it wasn't no trouble at all for Mammy to raise the whole caboodle of them. They say I nursed on one breast while that white child, Jenny, pulled away at the other. That was a pretty good idea for the mistress, for it didn't keep her tied to the place, and she could visit around with her friends and most any time she wanted. Maddie Logan had an interview with the Federal Whites Project in Oklahoma circa 1937. So that must be what the WP, well, that says WPO, that wouldn't be WPA. I don't know what that is. Slaveholders' interest in forcing enslaved women to reproduce frequently led to them working with white doctors, and their relationships with medical men led to enslaved women's exploitations as patients of medical testing. Slaveholders hoped medical intervention would ultimately increase their property, and doctors used medical experimentation to heighten their own status and prestige as the profession developed over the 19th century. Originally from Lancaster County, South Carolina, Alabama share a slaveholder, J. Marion Sims, for example, performed many agonizing and brutal operations on his enslaved women as he gained his reputation as the father of gynecology in the United States. Now, I don't know. They're saying that we can teach for education purposes and we have the right to criticize and to critique, to educate for scholarship, research, and they say that we can touch on these subjects. Yet the community guidelines are so uh, actually ambiguous, and they speak to like hate speech, or if you speak to events or something of that nature. And one of the events in this country that they don't want to acknowledge is the colonization of the people that were already here, and then gave us a story of the people that they brought here, and then we can't discuss any of it. But the story has to be told. This is the age of information, and I don't own this platform, and they can stop me at any time they please. And that's what they're going to have to do, is stop me from helping people learn so that we can change who we are as a people, because it's an individual thing, it's a you thing. Nobody can do it for you. You're going to have to be touched in some way that will make you say, why do I act like this? Why am I participating in stuff like this? I say I'm an adult. I'm treated as a child, minority, minor. Why am I doing this? I can do better. Why don't I try to find out maybe what's in place to make me act like the herd as opposed to an independent individual man or woman? It's in both of us. It's no one greater than the other. We both are out of order and out of harmony with nature. Whether they express unwilling or complicit behavior as they underwent their medical exploitation, bonded women feared and distrusted both their enslavers and medical professionals. However, bonded women and men were rarely in a position to avoid or refuse treatment because plantation owners determined when a white doctor was called and what action the doctor could take. Julia Brown explained in her WPA interview that during enslavement, the doctors came by buggy or on horseback. Them that rode on a horse had saddle pockets just filled with little bottles and lots of them. He'd try one medicine, and if it didn't do no good, he'd try another until it did good. Julia Brown interview with Federal Writers Project in Georgia, 1930. Brown retelling illustrates that many white antebellum doctors were willing to risk experimental treatment on enslaved people. An enslaved person's inability to refuse treatment made it nearly impossible for them to express the degree of risk they were willing to take on. In other cases, however, enslaved women were clearly against and fearful of the treatment doctors forced upon them in the 1830s. Four Charleston doctors, I almost said four Charleston White. Woo, help me. Four Charleston doctors perform an experimental ovarian surgery on an enslaved woman to remove a tumor from her body. The doctor recording notes wrote that the woman screamed and struggled violently, after which she was restrained so that the doctors could perform the surgery against her will. The racializing of black bodies as strong and robust, writes historian Deirdre Cooper Owens, meant that medical men perceived enslaved women as less susceptible to pain, and so they frequently avoided anesthesia even when it was readily available. That's one of the things that made the statement that Dr. Jackie said so devastating, is the fact that it has been said in history and throughout the medical apartheid, the way they treat us is that we're so strong, we can endure it and we don't feel pain. Sadly enough, the exploitation of enslaved women's reproductive abilities took multiple forms. The American slave system used women to reproduce the next generation of enslaved labor, fed, feed enslaved and white infants, test medicines, and perform risky surgeries related to obstetrics and gynecology. With enslaved women in the Low Country making up more than half of the enslaved population, nearly all of them experience some form of reproductive exploitation over the course of their lives. I just want to believe if more of our youth understood where we really came from. Anthony Hamilton says, coming from where I'm from, if we really understood, hi, Izetta, good to see you. If we really understood where we come from, I would like to believe that our people, some of us, would take a look at ourselves and question ourselves and want to know why we do what we do and want to know what we can do to change what we're doing. Phyllis said, and some of us will not listen. Being educated will free you. What? And again, hi, Izetta. Good to see you. So that article, again, comes from the LDIHI, Hidden Voices, Enslaved Women in the Low Country and U.S. South. So after Dr. Jackie caught a lot of backlash about, her saying that we just make excuses and we just want to be taken off work, she got a lot of backlash. And some of the backlash, I'm sure, came from uh, possibly some of her sorors, because she and the vice president share the same sorority. And I'm sure that they know that that doesn't look good for a sisterhood who say that everything that they come together for is to help the disenfranchised and the less fortunate. And so she gave an apology that sounded almost as insincere as her sitting there with the vice president. And I don't know if you guys that are here had an opportunity to hear what Dr. Jackie said, but I'm going to now play the apology that she gave. And perhaps what I need to do really is to play what she said over for you guys. If y'all didn't get to hear what she said, I may need to play that over. And so let me just try to just turn the music up just a little bit more, just so you can hear it, and hopefully you'll be able to hear her as well, because you need to understand the basis for this conversation. Again, the majority of my conversations will be about us and building and uplifting. But just like a great psychiatrist, and I don't practice medicine or law. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a psychologist, a chiropractor. I'm not an attorney or a lawyer, but I read a lot of books and I learn and I ascertain information, and then I want to regurgitate it to the public. I want to give it back. Um, One of the things that we must be cognizant of, if we don't know where we came from, then we're destined to end up in that place. We're going to end up in that place no matter how high we go, no matter what experiences in life that we have. If we don't learn from the experience of whatever that experience is, then we are most definitely going to we're most definitely going to end up in a situation where we're going to be going right back to that place that we know not of. So I'm going to take us back to the beginning of this so that you can hear what she said. As African American women, we're a bit more dramatic, and that you go to the doctor and you complain and you complain and you complain, and you're not taken serious because you cried wolf the entire pregnancy. That ain't me, boo. I don't know what you're talking about. Go ahead. I didn't say you. I just said as African American women, we want to also make sure you're being serious with your doctor and not playing the game so I can take you off the world. Because then we see you 25 times in the pregnancy. It's hard to believe that there's a true problem when there's a true problem. So she's saying that they see you whatever the scheduled appointments are, and if you have a true problem when it's time to have the baby, it's hard to believe, really, because you're telling us throughout the pregnancy that you have a true problem. So that's unbelievable that a doctor of obstetrics would say that when that is her field. Now, we all have some semblance of an idea when someone is faking something. You don't have to be a doctor to know that. But no one can tell you your level or degree of pain, is what I was told by all of my doctors. And some of them, no matter what happens, when you have certain things going on in your body, they want you, if you do a hiccup longer than 3 minutes, to go to the emergency room or give them a call. So it's just a matter of whatever is ailing you that a doctor should even consider the thought that perhaps we all could be over exaggerating. And that's where I guess she came up with the drama. But after she did that with, the vice president saying that we got to get the word out, and a lot of women of color don't know that they're entitled to medical 12 months postpartum. And I don't know what poor woman that doesn't know that. But she said that there are women that don't know that. But, and it perhaps could be, but pretty much the hospitals have gotten to the point where you're going to have insurance or you're not going to be using their facility. Be that as it may, she came back with an apology, which you guys be the judge in the apology, and here it goes. Under fair use, I am playing this under fair use. Needed pause to address this comment. Taking a much needed pause to address comments that I made during a 2020 live interview with one of my castmates. First and most importantly, to Black women and mothers, including your friends, families, and the medical community who cares for you. Because my words left you hurt and feeling unsupported, I want you to know I hear you, I see you, I believe you, and I apologize from the bottom of my heart. I am brokenhearted over this.
The guilt and reality that I have hurt and offended people, especially Black women, and some of my own patients, pains me to my core. As I look back over the 2 hour video again and again, I admit that I used the wrong words and descriptions to properly convey my concerns regarding maternal mortality related to women of color. But the fact is, we must do more because we are still dying more. If I could say it all over again, here's how I'd say it. When experiencing a health matter, keep a log of your concerns and symptoms so that you can provide them accurately to your physician. Have a backup system, someone who can advocate for you when you're with a physician, especially when pregnant. Know that a second and third opinion is not just sometimes warranted, but necessary. I thank you for taking out time from your holiday to tune into my apology and my self-dedication to Black women and healthcare. I've been shaken and moved to be better. Happy holiday.
Okay. So that was her apology. And it was some beautiful words. I really believe those words, and even the moment of tears. Now, a lot of people didn't believe that because she was reading from a teleprompter. But, sometimes when you are professional, you do that. You read from a teleprompter. So I don't know if that would discount her sincerity, but she, again, just comes across as a no nonsense type person. And she comes across hard to the core, and she has some issues that she believes in, and she has that right. But as a physician, then I don't know if that's the person that you would want to go to for your physician. I think that you just have to, know that when you get a doctor, and if the doctor doesn't seem to be attentive to you and your needs and your situation, then you really have to just go to another one. And I know that it is not easy for us to do that. It's just like working on a job. A lot of times we get caught on a job that we really hate, and we really get no joy out of, none whatsoever, because of the conditions, the policies, and oftentimes the employees that you work with. And we don't have the opportunity or the luxury to just quit a job and go get another one. Although we could do that, but at what cost can we do that? We don't get to leave a job and then go and apply. I have a study that I have that I'm going to talk about in another topic, about the how it is easier for a white individual with a record to get a job than a individual that is black, of Asiatic descent, to get a job without a record. The numbers are staggering. So I just want to again thank you guys for being here with me on Christmas Eve, because I know that this is the time that people spend with their families, and especially when you have little ones. We're going to move on until this book that we're going to be reading from for a minute. I'm not going to be reading a lot. I'm going to just read a little longer, and then I'm going to let you guys go because, again, I do know this is Christmas Eve. I'm honored that you all joined me. So let's get down to business on this next article, because it is a good one. I found a lot of good work. I really did. A lot of good work. A lot of good work that's out there. We just have to look. I think if we would start talking to our families and our children and to each other, we may have a different respect level for one another. We may look at that woman a little bit different when we think that she's loose or whatever the situation. We may look at that man a little bit different when we think that he's, chauvinistic, or he's just crazy or whatever. We may be able to see some things that would cause them to maybe be like they are. We never know. This is from the University of Nebraska, and this is an excellent book. And this is Again, another digital. And it is Disbelieving Black Women to Death. The Double Jeopardy, Racism and Sexism Affects Black Women's Access to and Quality of Care During Pregnancy, Birth, and Postpartum. So we got to give the credit. This is a recommended citation. And this is a lady who wrote this. Disbelieving Black Women to Death, the Double Jeopardy, Racism, and Sexism Affects Black Women Access to and Quality of Care During Pregnancy, Birth, and Postpartum. University Honors Program Thesis, University of Nebraska of Omaha, and submitted by Madeline St. Clair in the spring of 2020. Dr. Timmy Baroni. And I hope I pronounced the names correctly. I'm going to read a little bit from the abstract, a little bit from the introduction, and a little bit of the history because I don't want to overwhelm you guys with information. Then it goes on to tell about the honors program and the director, which is Lucy Morrison, and it goes on to tell the information in the program. Let's go with the abstract of the thesis. This paper explores possible reasons why Black women in the United States experience a higher maternal mortality rate than their white counterparts. Using books, articles, journals, documentaries, personal experiences, and stories of Black women and mothers, I argue that barriers from the societal to the individual level create health and medical disparities for Black mothers in pregnancy, during delivery, and the postpartum period. The paper concludes with a multifaceted solution and call to action. Keywords: Black maternal mortality, healthcare, barriers to healthcare, obstetrics, childbirth, bias, discrimination, racism, sexism. And the running title is Maternal Mortality. Introduction. Angela Pye, a Black woman who worked in the child welfare profession for over 20 years, was unaware of the horrific statistics of the maternal mortality rate in Black women until it became her reality. She was a mother of 3 healthy boys when she became pregnant with the 4th child. As someone who had experienced many miscarriages, Pye was aware and sensitive to the symptoms and concerns associated with a miscarriage. Pye had spotting within the first trimester and was told not to worry by her OB/GYN. She made it to her second trimester with good reports of the baby's growth. However, Pye suffered a drop in her iron and platelets and was told that she could suffer a brain aneurysm at any moment. She was instructed to be on bed rest with scheduled platelet transfusions. Her questions on her condition were left unanswered and her concerns were left unattended. The probability that this mother would live past delivery was slim to none. Within the limited time of her pregnancy, she had to prepare herself to leave her husband, 3 children, and newborn while also preparing her children to live a life without their mother. All the while, Pye experienced extreme fatigue and illness during the delivery. During the delivery, the physicians performed a spinal tap without real consent and refused to have Pye oxygen when she was short of breath. They refused to treat any other symptoms Pye faced, including continual nausea and vomiting. All the odds were against Pye, and somehow she lived. Pi is using her second chance to bring awareness and improve maternal outcomes for Black women and all women in the United States. She notes, we deserve to enjoy our pregnancies, not plan for our funerals. We deserve to live. We deserve better. She went on to explain throughout this paper, we will use instead of African American, because not all Black people are African Americans, NABJ 2019, the usage of Black instead of African American provides and ensures inclusivity of everyone within the African diaspora, geographically and culturally. Jeffers 2019. African American and Black may be used interchangeably depending on what the author or source has used. Running title: Maternal Mortality. High maternal mortality rates are an important issue in the United States and should precipitate greater concern. Oh, it should be precipitate a greater concern. Despite ranking first with the highest monetary investment in hospital based maternity care than any other country, the U.S. is among the worst developed countries for pregnancy related death prevention. And that's Martin and Montague, I think that's what they said, how you pronounce it. 2017b. Though the maternal mortality rates in the United States are relatively low from a global perspective, they are rising in some areas, especially for Black women. This is not surprising given that the Black population have historically been denied opportunities for proper health care. It's amazing how everyone knows this, but nothing is ever done about it. What has been provided is either of diminished quality or markedly exploitative. The lack of equity is a matter of life and death, particularly for Black women. In general, Black women receive less attention and lower quality health care. This inequity is particularly apparent among pregnant Black women who are 3 to 4 times more likely to die from pregnancies related complications than white women. CDC 2019a. Moreover, the statistic is independent of parity, age, or education, and 60% of these deaths could have been prevented. CDC 2019a. Despite medical advancement, the ratio between the rates of Black and white maternal mortality have not declined in over 25 years. Maternal mortality rates of Black mothers is a multifaceted issue. No single statistic clearly identifies why the statistics differ dramatically between white mothers and Black mothers. Thus, to assess the high rates of maternal mortality rates, it is necessary to assess the barriers constructed by racism. Assessing race related impediments to equitable health care for Black women may help identify injustices caused by racist stereotypes and unconscious biases within the patient physician relationship. The harsh reality of historical mistreatment of Black people in the U.S. healthcare system, along current healthcare statistics, clearly demonstrates that Black women are in grave danger. They are endangered by the common childbirth practices of today and the lack of accessible prenatal care options. These practices are rooted in the history of obstetrics, which as part of the history of the U.S. is profoundly influenced by the forces of patriarchal priority and racism. History of obstetrics. Women were the earliest birth attendants. Ancient mythology and artistic depictions identify women as the earliest practitioners of midwifery within historic groups. women caring for women, in tune to the and the natural tendencies of the body, and knowingly patient in appropriate timing is the earliest model. Prehistoric figures in ancient Egyptian drawings showcase women giving birth in a sitting or squatting position, a position that better utilizes musculature and gravity to ease the process of delivery, which was commonly used throughout the world. And if you notice, that's how the majority of the animals give birth. They're standing. They're not necessarily squatting, but they're in a standing position with the help of gravity, is, I guess, my point. However, in 1663, Francis Morisot triggered a methodology shift in Europe, pushing patriarchal influences upon birthing practices into the birthing room. Mauricio, and I don't know if I'm saying his name right, so that's the best I can say it, attended the childbirth of one of Louis the 14th mistresses, and that's Louis the 14th mistresses, with the king, and introduced the practice of women lying in bed to give birth instead of the aforementioned positions. This was not a medical innovation, but rather a way to give the king a view of the childbirth, something he found titillating and erotic. Drift 202, page 312. That's where she got her information. Thus, the practice of men entering the delivery room occurred for power reasons, not for the well being of the mother and child. The use of forceps during the birthing process began as a way for male physicians to speed up the birth through intervention instead of letting the mother's body follow its own rhythm. Curl and DeFranco, 214, page 208. This intervention comes with significant risks, prioritizing the baby over the mother and potentially causing long term or permanent health issues for both the mother and baby. Over the mother and baby. When medical textbooks educating men and male physicians about childbirth were published in Europe in the 1500s, male comfort and supposed superiority gave rise to competitive tensions between physician and midwives, a patriarchal construct that remains despite the gender of the midwife slash physician. Drift 2002, page 311. Still, because of the association with high status and power, women turn to physicians with promise of safer, less painful labor through the use of forceps and later drugs and anesthesia. Die 1980, page 101 to 102. Widely published information on childbirth, the extension of the delivery process into an official medical field, and the development of new technologies led to more advanced and modern practices. Some of these practices have led to unintended, both beneficial and life threatening consequences. For instance, puerperal fever is caused by a urine infection following childbirth. The fever affects women approximately 3 days after childbirth and may rapidly progress to death from sepsis within a few days. Hallett 205, page 1. Until the mid 1800s, puerperal fever was transmitted through surgeons who worked on wounds and then called to care for a mother without washing his hands in between patients. Carr 2000. Thus, they carried bacteria from working on a wound and into the open wound of a womb. Carr 2000. Washing hands or any form of sterilization was not practiced at this time, but puerperal fever motivated Ignaz Semmelweis, man, I messed that man name up, an Hungarian physician in Australia in the 1840s to start experiments on the antisepsis, and that came from Zoltan 2019. Semmelweis was known as the savior of mothers because the simple act of washing one's hand drastically reduced the number of women dying. Zoltan 2019. Many American physicians were unconvinced and ignorant of the importance of antisepsis, and the practice did not become routine until the end of the 19th century. Die 1980, page 103. A little over 150 years ago, women bore children without anesthesia. The first effective anesthesia was developed by James Young Simpson and Crawford W. Long. However, its use in childbirth in the 1840s was widely debated. Some believed the Bible suggested God had made it so women should suffer during childbirth, but others believed it provided a new freedom to women who routinely underwent the agony of childbirth, and anesthesia was eventually praised. Eschner, 2017. It is the development of antisepsis and anesthesia that laid the groundwork for cesarean sections. When C sections were introduced in the early 1800s, the life of the mother was prioritized during C sections because once the obstetrician was summoned, the baby was presumably already dead. Drift 2002, page 311. Until the late 18th century, birth was exclusively a woman's affair in the U.S. and was considered to be more of a social event because medicine was exclusively a men's occupation. The transition from social to medical views of deliveries was synonymous with the transition of women controlled birth experiences to a man controlled one. This transition occurred gradually between the 18th century and into the early 20th century. Physicians, men, between the 18th and 19th centuries described midwives, women, as ignorant and dangerously incompetent. However, midwives of the time were knowledgeable on the stages of labor, recognized and managed difficulties throughout delivery, and used mechanical and pharmacological means to alleviate pain and speed labor. Die 1980, page 104. By the 1920s, the transition into the medical model of childbirth was complete, and the medical profession controlled birth management nationally. Obstetrics now, we're going to pass over that because where I want to go is history of the black population in the healthcare system. The years of neglect of the health of black Americans start at the beginning of the slave trade and continues to in the clear and evident neglect of black health issues nationally today. Africans were captured, shipped, sold, and enslaved. They were forced into involuntary sterilization and exploitative, and I think they say exploitative, medical research, and segregated, officially and unofficially, to areas where healthcare is largely inaccessible. Mortality rates in Africa during slave roundups and marches to the coast were as high as 50%. Beard and Clayton. 1992, page 193. The Africans that made it to the United States to be enslaved were overworked and overexposed to the elements. Slaveholders only provided them with the bare minimum resources for survival. Poor nutrition, inadequate clothing, insufficient housing, and overall poor sanitation caused high mortality rates among those enslaved. Beard and Clayton, 1992, page 193. From the start of slavery in 1616 to its abolition with the 13th Amendment in 1865, physicians rarely attended to the health and survival of slaves. Additionally, slaveholders enforced slave breeding, and enslaved women were often, you know, the R word is there. These atrocities led to even more traumatic injuries, obstetrical complications, and gynecologic diseases for the slave women. I'm saying Beard, that may be considered Bird, and Clayton, 1992, page 194. Beginning in the mid 18th century, the pattern of exploitation of black lives also extended into academia. Physicians and medical students started using black persons for training and as experimental subjects. The expansion of the medical field and new sciences intensified the views of racial inferiority, further justifying slavery as scientifically appropriate. Medical schools and journals displayed unnecessary surgeries, vulgar representations of nudity and genitals, starvation, and burnings performed on slaves in the name of advancing medical knowledge. Bird and Clayton, 1992, page 194. I just want to take a pause right there and just say, I believe, and it's just me, and perhaps it's, just wishful thinking, but I believe if our children were taught this in the homes, we can't rely on other people to tell our story and our history. With this being the information age and the thing that we use most, the telephone that we have at our disposal at any given time, we spend hours on YouTube. Wouldn't it be amazing if we could share this information and start seeing parents start learning for themselves and then deciding what information they want to impart in their children, which I think if they're old enough, they should tell all of the truth and nothing but the truth. Because we learned with the seven Hermetic principles that in truth, all truths are but half truths. And so once we understand the laws of nature, is nature's laws, nature's God, and we understand that it works the same for everybody, but it only works if you work it. That means you have to be obedient to what it is. Then I think that our children may even start viewing themselves differently, and therefore they may have a little more respect for others. That's just a wishful thinking, but I just believe in the saying that everybody loved to say, when you know better, you do better. And so if you don't know any better, then you tend to, just do anything. Some of us know better and just go with the crowd because we just want to belong to something. We want to fit in and we don't want to be the one laughed at and talked about. So we just go along, as they say, to get along. But it's more that we need to do if the children are our future. We've got to start investing in their knowledge. It is good to get them all the beautiful gifts that they're going to wake up to tomorrow. I did it for my son up until he was an adult. But I tell you, if you give them all of the great gifts of today and they have not knowledge, you have not helped your child. You just taught them how it's going to be if we don't turn this thing around. And the best way we can turn it around is by educating ourselves. If we learn what and how things work, then we can know what, when, why we do what we do. It's just that simple. And we got to get it together. I mean, not just for our sakes, because we're the seniors now. I am for sure. And there are others that are older than me, and more are coming. We're the seniors. We're going to have all of these children that's coming off of the crack era, and a lot of them have no feelings, no respect, no connection to family, no commitment. None of that. It's only the bag, the game, who played the best, who's the biggest, who's the baddest, how can I disgrace you, how can I shame you, how can I hurt you, how can I make you feel like nothing. A time is out for that. We've been through that our whole lives. We need to do better. And I can't make anybody do anything. And some people don't like my tone, and that's fine. But I gotta tell it. I was created for this. This is my purpose. I've been serving people my whole life, in my professional life, in my private life. I help more people in the course of a month than most people know in a lifetime. And now just let that marinate. I do. And I do it willingly and happily. I really do. Let me go on. By the early 1900s, science began disproving claims of racial inferiority, but that did not end the medical disparities between white and black pregnant women. As early as 1907, hysterectomies were performed on black women with neither their knowledge nor their consent. Between 1930 and 1970, North Carolina alone sterilized over 7,600 women. Crass 214. These non consensual hysterectomies were jokingly called Mississippi appendectomies by physicians and were most certainly motivated by racist ideologies. Bird and Clayton, 1992, page 196. Non consensual experiments were not limited to black women, but these exploitative procedures continued well into the 20th century. Perhaps the most infamous of these are the Tuskegee syphilis experiments. The Tuskegee syphilis experiments had a profound effect on the United States healthcare system through its betrayal of the black population. In 1932, the Public Health Service and the Tuskegee Institute began the Tuskegee study of untreated syphilis in the Negro male to observe the long term effects of syphilis. CDC 2015. 600 men were initially recruited, 399 men with syphilis, and a control group of 201 men without syphilis. CDC 2015. And what I did not know about this experiment, when they say with syphilis, these are men who had contracted syphilis on their own. I thought through the tales of the stories, and that's why it's best to do your own research. We may have good intentions, and we may think that we really understand the story or comprehend, and we can really tell it. But sometimes when we tell it, we start telling it our way, and we may get it wrong. So anytime I give you any information, I'm coming from a good place, but I could have it wrong. That's why I give you the keys and the information where you can try and go and look it up for yourselves to find out. But those men already had syphilis and they didn't treat them. So let's go with the story as it goes. In 1932, the Public Health Service and the Tuskegee Institute began the Tuskegee study of untreated syphilis in Negro male to observe the long term effects of syphilis. Okay, I already read that part. Researchers told the black men that they were being treated for several ailments termed as bad blood, and in exchange would receive free medical exams and medicine for diseases other than syphilis, transportation, meals, and burial insurance. Isn't that something? Burial insurance. Hmm. CDC 2015. By 1947, penicillin was the recommended and effective treatment for syphilis, but only placebos of aspirin and mineral supplements were given to the men. Nix 2017. In order to track the full progression of syphilis, the researchers provided no effective care as the men died, went blind, insane, or experienced other severe health problems due to the untreated syphilis. Nix 2017. In July of 1972, a journalist published a story about the boy, I'm saying Tuskegee all wrong, about the Tuskegee study, and the public was mortified and outraged. A federal government advisory panel concluded that the study was unjustified. The experiments were shut down because it was exposed by the media, not because the researchers or anyone involved with the Public Health Service or the Tuskegee Institute thought it was unethical. But all they tell us about is ethical behavior, terms of service, honor system. That's what we're judged by on everything we do because we own nothing. So everything we do is based on somebody else's approval because they have ownership. But none of this was stopped because it was unethical, inhumane, torture. None of that had anything to do with it. It was because of the media. The study was supposed to last 6 months, but lasted for 40 years. CDC 2015, and you think that's not a matter to cry for years? In 1973, Congress held hearings on the Tuskegee experiments and decided upon financial settlements for the surviving participants and heirs of those who had died. Nix 2017. New guidelines were issued to protect human subjects in government funded research projects. And do hear what she wrote, human subjects. That word means something. You should look it up. The legacy of Tuskegee is a deep mistrust of public health officials and the healthcare system in U.S. black populations. Nix 2017. This mistrust has contributed substantially to the underrepresentation of minorities. There go that word again, minorities. See, when you're in a minority, they're saying that we can't even handle our own affairs, so the government has to do it for us. And we think we're free. Okay. The mistrust has contributed substantially, and I just read that. The civil rights movement of the 1960s paved the way for better health care for black Americans. Did it really? Medicare and Medicaid brought integration to hospitals. However, these programs excluded people not meeting certain age, employment, or income requirements, and it's that way today. Interlandi 2019. Full equality and fairness in the healthcare system has not yet been attained, nor does it appear to be nearing completion. In addition to barriers at the societal level, there is damage occurring at the individual health level for black populations. I should be getting close to being through with this. Yeah, I am. I'm almost finished with this, and then I'll be closing it out. I think it's just going by itself now. I'm not controlling it anymore. I guess I went down too far, trying to see how far I have to go. Okay. In addition to barriers at the societal level, there is damage occurring at the individual health level for black populations. In 1992, Erlen Geronimus theorized the idea of weathering that over time, the toxic stress of dealing with discrimination leads to poor health outcomes. The toxic stress of racism led to increased cortisol levels and inflammation, and these increased levels in turn cause premature aging. There is no doubt that the impact of toxic stress negatively affects the well-being of black women and their infants throughout pregnancy and delivery. A study of historical injustices directed at black people found a strong association between premature mortality rates of African Americans and Jim Crow laws. Potential linkage include lack of access to adequate care, excess exposure to environmental hazards, economic deprivation, and the psychological toll of living in racism each and every day. Krager, 2014, page 502. Historian of science at Harvard University, Evelyn Hammonds notes, there has never been any period in American history where the health of blacks was equal to that of whites. Disparity is built into the system. Interlandi, 2019. Gina Wortham, a reporter and staff writer for the New York Times, explained the toll of racism on her health as a black woman. All the rage and mourning and angst works to exhaust you. It eats you alive with its relentlessness. These slayings obey no human logic. They force you to reconcile your own helplessness in the face of such brutal injustice and the terrifying reality that it could happen to you or someone you hold dear. Wortham, 2016. The trauma that black Americans experience from their everyday life plays a large role in their health. And on that note, I'm going to get ready to bring this lesson to a close. I hope that all of my reading did not bore you, and I thank you all for staying with me throughout this video. It means a lot. I thank y'all for hitting the mic button. And I say, enjoy your families. When you get an opportunity, go back and listen to the video. And maybe you can play it, here and there. You can stop it and start it and stop it and start it. But go back and listen to the video. It's very interesting. And again, if we could get some of our young adults to hear where they've come from, what they've had to go through, what we as a people have had to go through, perhaps they could look at each other a little bit different. I know a lot of people are here for entertainment purposes, and I hope this is as entertaining as it is educational. But we got to start educating the children if we truly believe that they are our future. Because again, we're not going to be here always. And what legacy do you want to leave behind? All the material things that you do cannot help you if your health is not good. And some of us didn't find out until we were almost old and gray that we had health problems. And a lot of us have congenital health problems, meaning we were born with them, but they don't always manifest until they manifest. So, you could go to the doctor all your life and never know that you have a certain illness if it doesn't show any symptoms. So, I'm glad that you guys were able to join me. You heard Dr. Jackie, the poor statement you made. You heard her talk to the vice president on how we're going to get the word out to the black women and we really want them to have it. And then we heard her do the apology. Now we have some history, and I'm going to be reading in this history. It's not going to be just about the pregnancy and the mortality rate, but it's going to be a part of it because I think, again, if we teach our children, if we're given the opportunity, right now we're given the opportunity to speak, whether I get paid or not on this video. At this point, for me, it doesn't matter anymore. You know, people give when they can, and they don't when they don't want to. Beautiful. But I know I've done my part. And that's all I can do is my part. And I'm going to go in here and do my work. Whether anyone believe a workman is worthy of his hire when it comes to me, that's fine. Because I'm going to get this word out until they tell me that we're shutting you down and we don't want you talking anymore. I don't belong to any particular set. I don't represent any particular group. I am an Asiatic, Moorish American, and I am indigenous to this land. And I've just recently learned my pedigree and my history, and I want to share it with the world. And you make your own decisions, but if you're not informed, you're only going to make the decision that's been given to you to make. So I do my best to help you help yourself. You can take it, you can throw it away, but I thank you for joining me and supporting me. It really means a lot. And on that note, I'm going to get ready to say goodnight. So we'll start back. I'm going to go back and read the one paragraph that I did not read and then go back. Well, it's a subtitle, it's not a paragraph, it's longer than a paragraph. And then I'm going to come back to the maternal mortality rates in black women. I have some good information on this and our history. And I'm also going to do um, my experience at the Potter's House. I'm going to do a whole video on that uh, because I had a ministry at the Potter's House under Bishop T.D. Jakes. And I want to tell my experience. My experience may not be that of other people's, but it is certainly mine. And so, like one of the ladies, I heard her video, I'm in no fear of being sued or anything of that nature because one thing I know about defamation, the only way to put an end to defamation, the only thing that will extinguish it, exterminate it, is the truth. And so I live and I learned as I grew up to worship in spirit and in truth. So I live my life in spirit and in truth. You know, I am who I am, and some things I'll change, some things I'll never change. I had a conversation about my videos and how they're being viewed and how I'm not really putting it out there. And I've tried all kind of ways. I put this out here and we had less people than I would normally have. So it does not matter. And you can't work off of how it worked for others, but I had already purposed in my mind. If y'all didn't know it, I put that backdrop up there myself. And I'm going to remove myself just for a moment so y'all can get a beautiful picture of my work, which it is my thumbnail, of course. But let me just remove myself for a second. Do y'all know I did that and I don't know how in the world I did it? But I kept on trying and I kept on trying and I got it. So they all may start looking something like this and I may learn how to change the colors to change it up or something. But I'm going to try witty inventions. I don't need a million or barrage of people because I really do have congestive heart failure and sometimes I feel like doing something and sometimes I don't. But one thing I've tried to be is committed to Wednesdays and Sundays the best of my ability. But having said all of that, just know that I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Thank you for hitting the like button. Everybody in the bushes and the trees, wherever you are, in the mountains, in the woods, on the beach, on the boat, wherever you are. If you're Santa on the sleigh, maybe you're listening. I just want to say thank you all for being here. And I'm going to close out with my beautiful song that I opened up with. And just remember, justice for CJ, not me, and justice for Mo 3. Have a merry, merry Christmas. Someday at Christmas, men won't be boys. Play with bums like kids play with toys. One December, our hearts will see a world where men are free. Someday at Christmas, there'll be no wars. When we have learned what Christmas is for, when we have learned what life's really worth, there'll be peace on earth. Someday all our dreams will come to be. Someday in a world where men are free. Maybe not a time for you and me, but someday at Christmas time. Someday at Christmas time. Merry Christmas, everybody.